All right, I'm back over here. So yeah, Belushi. Sorry. DMs, I miss them all the time, so don't worry about it. But yeah, so welcome everybody. This is Bill Donahue, Discerning Truths. Everything's good. I'm coming to you from Kauai, where we're getting last few days. The volcano is acting up on the Big Island, which is the furthest island from us. But for whatever reason, we get volcanic fog over here from that, and extra rain. So looks like we're finally getting sun again. But last few days have sucked. It's a from the stuff. It's just kind of weird weather in the on our worst day, it's in the 70s. Okay, so it's like you can't complain too much. But yeah, so with that, what I generally do is on Mondays and Wednesdays I teach through a book of the Bible. In Esther, because Esther's not theologically really deep. I'm cracking 2 chapters at a time. And I did an introduction last week on Monday, chapters 1 and 2 on Wednesday. Today I'm going to do chapters 3 and 4, 5 and 6 on Wednesday, and then on Friday I do something different. So on Friday I'm going to look at, is God a moral monster? Is the God of the Old Testament a different God than the New Testament? How do we reconcile God killing everybody but 8 people in the Old Testament in a flood, ordering genocide of the Canaanites, those kind of actions? Was that really God? Was that Satan? Was that somebody else? These things come up, and it came up in a chat conversation. It became a private conversation. I've encountered this with writing, so those kind of things are what trigger my Friday studies. And I figure if they're not the only person asking this question. A lot of people have asked this question over the years. So Friday be interesting. Tuesdays, I'm normally on with Neo. Neo is traveling, so no Donahue's Day Tuesday this tomorrow. I get a day off, so it's good. So with that, I'm going to jump right into the study. And what I do is I usually say hi to the chat, and that after I'm done with my study, and then I go back and look at any questions that might come up, or that I just I saw Belushi popped in, and that's why I responded to him. But normally those kind of things wait until after the study. So with that, we're going to get into Esther chapter 3. But like I said, this story is about Esther's a Jewish woman, haughty, just absolute gorgeous. Everybody that sees her just thinks she's the hottest woman. The king got mad at his last hot wife, booted her because she didn't obey him, picked a new hot wife, and it happened to be Esther. Mordecai is benefiting. These are a bunch of Jews that went to Iran, Persia, after Persia destroyed the Babylonian, conquered Babylon, freed the Jews out of there. Some of the Jews went back to Israel, to Jerusalem, to rebuild the temple and the city, but a lot of them went to where the money was, and they went to Persia, and it was the wealthiest nation at the time, and they were living good lives, and they weren't slaves or anything. Mordecai's out there, and he's at the gate talking to all the big guys, and he's like Esther's cousin, but much older cousin. In fact, we're not told how old Mordecai is, but they were in captivity for 70 years, and he was taken into captivity in the early waves. So he's well, even if he was taken as a young boy, we're talking about somebody who's well up in age at this point. And Esther, who was, coming out there, and she's living in Persia, and her parents die, so she's with Mordecai. Well, Mordecai hears this, he's there, he's the big character, and then this guy Hamon, and Hamon is a like second in command, the king's right hand man, and Hamon hates the Jews. He wants them dead. And he has reasons for that. And that's where we're getting to in chapter 3. This is how this intrigue starts out. It says, and after these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Hamon the Agagite, the son of Hamadath, and advanced him to set his throne above all other officials who were with him. Okay? Boom. Haman gets up there. And Ahasuerus, I explained in the thing, this is the biblical name, Hebrew name. We know him as King Xerxes, okay? The first in Persia, okay? So in the book of Esther, Haman's an Agagite, and he's the antagonist in the story. But what does it mean he's an Agagite? That's just rolling off my tongue right now, okay? And I want you to understand that we don't know much about Haman outside this book, but we do know, based on 1 Samuel 15, that Agagites are descendants from the Amalekites. The Amalekites are one of the Canaanite tribes that were infected with giants, okay, Nephilim. Post-flood, we know this happened pre-flood, and it perverted the whole world, and God killed everybody but 8 people because the evil that the Nephilim brought, with the sons of God mating with the daughters of men and producing the Nephilim, brought evil in the whole world. God killed everything. After the flood, it happens again. But this time, the concentration of the perversion is in the land of Canaan. And instead of, oh, lovely, I got a neighbor doing his lawn right now. Hopefully that's not too loud on the mic. But, so God tells the Jews, Joshua, to go in and destroy every man, woman, and child, even the animals of these infected tribes. He's trying to clean the bloodline out without exterminating the whole planet again. But they fail, and they don't kill all the Amalekites, right? But they, because of that attempted extermination, they remain enemies of the Israelites from that point forward. And you find this from Exodus 17:8-16, Deuteronomy 25:17-19, right? The Amalekites are like an archetypical enemy of Israel, meaning they're just representative of all of those giant clans that were in the time. But it's not, I mean, he's literally probably a descendant of them, but it doesn't mean he's a giant. Just because they're in there, what you find is giants in the tribes, but not everybody's a giant. Okay? Now in Deuteronomy 7:1-2 and 20:16-18, God commands those Israelites to destroy certain Canaanite tribes. Okay? The Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites coming in there. Well, the Amalekites aren't listened to them. But later on, the Amalekites are going to be found out as a distinct group, and they're told to get rid of them. And that's Exodus 17:8-16 and Deuteronomy 25:17-19. And God not only tells them to kill him, he says, blot out the memory of Amalek. Amalek is obviously one of the first Nephilim in this tribe. He wants to blot it out. Now, some Christians are bothered by the fact that these texts seem to have God ordering genocide. I've even seen scholars, Christian scholars, that wrote books. Paul Copan wrote a book that says God didn't order genocide. I think he's what do you call it? Trying to, part of his argument is valid, and I'll deal with this on Friday, but part of it is trying to get around this problem. I'm saying, this is far more surgical than a global flood. It's I mean, if I take a knife and cut you up, that's a mean thing. If a doctor takes a knife and cuts cancer out of you, that's a good thing. Still involved cutting. This is cutting, and it's cutting out a cancer. Now, the biblical accounts indicate that Israelites did not fully carry out this command, and some Canaanite groups and the Amalekites survived, and we see that in Judges 1:27-36 and 1 Samuel 15:7-9, which is where we started. So this sets the stage for later conflicts and the survival of descendants like Hamon opens the door to the speculation that one reason that Hamon hates him is because of his past attempted genocide. The text doesn't say that, right? It says it hates him because he wouldn't show him respect. But you got to understand, if somebody doesn't show you respect and they're already from a tribe that you have a past history with, it digs a little deeper, right? So the narrative attributes Haman's hatred to Mordecai's his defiance to bow to him and do that. And it escalates in a plan for Haman to destroy all Jews, which we're going to get to in verse 6. There's no direct reference to the Canaanite or Amalekite destruction in the text. And this is what I mean is a lot of times the Bible writes stuff like you understand the rest of the Bible and you've been spending years reading it. It just throws out these little hints and drops little seeds that takes more study to understand. The main and plain things of the Bible are simple enough for a child to understand. That's not what I focus on here. Right? Now Mordecai's a Benjamite. He's descended from Kish, and that's from Esther 2:5. Linking him to King Saul, who fought the Amalekites. Okay? So not only is Hamon or Mordecai an Israelite, he's part of the tribe specifically that went out to kill the Amalekites underneath King Saul. Okay? So it may echo this earlier Saul Agag fight, right? And the book of Esther emphasizes divine providence. Although God's never named directly in this book. It's the only book of the Bible that never mentions God directly. Haman's plot and downfall align with the idea that attempts to destroy Israel will fall, possibly reflecting the earlier command to blot out the Amalek. A divine mandate still persists. Okay? So the book of Esther is rich in irony. Like Haman's going to construct some gallows that he himself are going to get hung with. And if Haman's plot is revenge for his ancestors' near destruction, the irony is that this plan fails. He's going to suffer a similar fate to Agag, his death at the hand of Israel's defenders, Mordecai and Esther. Okay? So this is what you have this kind of theme running in here in the book of Esther, and I'm just trying to give you the backstory. Now, rabbinic sources, these are like targums. Okay, the targums are in Aramaic, and they're like Bible commentary. Okay, and there's a targum from Shene to Esther, and they often portray Haman as an Amalekite driven by ancestral hatred, which is kind of going along with what I'm saying here. So that reinforces the idea of a retaliatory motive. But I want you to understand, this is something that we are trying to draw out of the text that the text doesn't actually say, right? And that's where I want to differ. I want to make it clear when it's thus saith the word of God, and it's Bill thinks this is what the word of God is implying. Different ideas, different levels of credibility. I try to be credible, but you're here. Now, the book of Esther doesn't explicitly state that Haman's plot is to revenge for the destruction of Amalekite ancestors. In the text use of Agagite and Mordecai's Saul portrayal strongly suggests that thematic connection, okay? Because Agite is referenced in Agag, right? And Agag is specifically who Saul's against. So, whether Haman's specifically motivated by revenge or just by the fact that he's not being honored is not as clear to us, but the original audience may have caught that, right? That this is part of a bigger stuff. But this is, like I said, speculation. A little bit of speculation. Hopefully I'm entitled to a little bit once in a while when I clearly identifies speculation as speculation, right? Verses 2 to 6 says, and the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid homage to Hamon, for the king had so commanded concerning him. Okay? He's second in command. Everybody's showing him stuff. But Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage. Then the king's servants who were at the king's gate said to Mordecai, why do you transgress the king's command? And when they spoke to him day after day, and he would not listen to them, and they told Hamon in order to see whether Mordecai's words would stand, and he told them that he was a Jew. And when Hamon saw that Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage to him, Hamon was filled with fury. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. So as they had made known to him the people of Mordecai, Hamon sought to destroy all Jews. The people of Mordecai thought the whole kingdom, the people of Mordecai throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. So this kingdom of Ahasuerus goes from India to Egypt. That's what the Persians had conquered. It's 127 provinces. One of the largest ancient kingdoms ever. And there's Jews spread across it. The people of Mordecai. Okay? And like I said, the text says that Haman's anger is because Mordecai didn't bow down. And he's filled with fury at him. But why doesn't he want to touch him personally? Single him out? Because it'll look like some kind of personal vendetta. You look bad. But isn't it better? I'm going to use this as my excuse to get rid of all the Jews. Okay? We'll do a final solution if you want. Right? You know? I'm going to get rid of them all. Because they're all troublemakers. They always have been, according to Haman's idea. Right? And a lot of streamers that are out there now. Verses 7 to 11. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur. That is, they cast lots before Hamon day after day. And they cast it month after month until the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. And the king said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those in every other people, and they do not keep the king's laws. So it is not the king's profit to tolerate them. If it please the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who have charge of the king's business, and they may put it to the king's treasuries. So the king took the signet ring from his hand and gave it to Hamon the Agagite, and the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Hamon, the money is given to you, the people also, to do with them as it seems good to you. Now the Persians consulted oracles and astrologers and did divination practices to align their actions with the will of the gods, right? Or the cosmic order. Casting lots was seen as a way to access divine guidance, you know, and reducing human bias in decision making. Okay, I'm going to cast lots. I'm going to seek my little 8 ball, shake it up, and see what the answer tells me, right? You know, and figure out what's going on. So this is my second slide on this, but I wanted to point out some stuff. A Babylonian talent to the weight is approximately 30 kilograms, or about 66 pounds. Okay, and that's based on archaeological evidence and from the Achaemenid Persian Empire. So 10,000 talents of silver is 661,386 pounds of silver. Right? This is a crazy amount. It's roughly 30 fully loaded semi-trucks full of silver. Like dump trucks. Okay? If I convert the weight to troy ounces, which is how we sell silver today, and troy ounces is about $30 to $35 right now, right? An ounce. We're talking about payment would be worth something in the range of $289.4 million. That's what Haman gave the king. Let me kill the Jews. I'll give you $290 million. King says, sounds good to me. Let it be so, right? That's a big bounty Haman's paying. That's a lot for somebody that didn't show you respect. But if these are the ancient enemies of your people, and they tried to exterminate your entire race of people, your entire your history, kind of makes that payment, that kind of money, a little bit more, makes more sense, right? Verses 12 to 15. Then the king's scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month. An edict according to all that Haman commanded was written in the king's satraps and the governors all over the provinces and the officials of all peoples, every province in its own script and every people in its own language. It was written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring. Letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with instructions to destroy and to kill and to annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, in one day. Okay? The 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. A copy of the document was to be issued in a decree in every province, a proclamation for the people to be ready for that day. The couriers went out hurriedly in order of the king. The decree was issued in Susa, the citadel, and the king and Haman sat down to drink by the city of Susa, and was thrown into confusion. So the king didn't say kill them all today. They set a date. This is a plan. You plan your military stuff in advance, right? It's got a huge kingdom. This stuff's got to travel by horseback or camel or whatever. It's going to take time to get the messages everywhere. So they send off a date far enough in advance that everybody can get the message. And Haman's plot seems like a sure thing. He's got the king to agree. He's the second in command. The messages are going out to everybody. Haman's plot is just nailed. It seems like it's etched in stone. What can go wrong? Okay, now in chapter 4, when Mordecai learned that all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out in the midst of the city, and he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. And in every province, wherever the king's command and his decree reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and lamenting, and many of them lay in sackcloth and ashes. Okay, these people are really distressed. They just came out of Babylonian captivity not that long ago, 50 years prior. They're thinking, we're going to get here. They're having a great life in Persia. And now suddenly, they're all going to be killed again. Right? Now, there's no A in Nineveh. Wow, this is fun. I do proofread stuff. I noticed when I put the titles up, there was an incorrect title on like X and D-Live that came out where it was misspelled. But similar to Nineveh, with no A, repenting in the story of Jonah, in the book of Jonah, we went through that. Remember, Jonah goes there, he throws a pout because he doesn't want to preach repentance to the Ninevites because he wants God to judge them. He says, he tries to go the other way. God has to have him swallowed and spit up on the shore by some kind of creature. I'm telling you, I believe it's Leviathan, that the story indicates that Jonah was dead and spit back out, brought back to life. And he goes up there on the beach, and he's a very reluctant prophet. He doesn't want to preach to them because he knows if he does, they're going to repent and God's going to withhold his judgment. So they're using that as their basis. They're putting on sackcloth and ashes. They're weeping. They're going to God saying, please, God, relent. Don't let this judgment come against us. Right? They're doing it. Now, I don't wear sackcloth and ashes, But I always thought that the only possible salvation for the United States, based on the things we had done, was for mass repentance to go on and a mass amount of people turning to God, right? And then verses 4-7. And when Esther's young woman and her eunuchs came and told her, the queen was deeply distressed. So the queen, Mordecai can't enter the king's gate. So the queen's not aware of all this going on. She sent garments to clothe Mordecai so that he might take off the sackcloth, and he would not accept them. Then Esther called Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, and he had been appointed to attend her, and he ordered him to go to Mordecai and then learn what this was and why. Hathach went out to Mordecai and opened the square in the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the exact sum of money that Hamon had promised to pay to the king's treasurer for the destruction of the Jews. Okay? So the first step in God's plan, in foiling Haman's plot, is to having Queen Vashti, and she was, remember in the last chapters, she got booted. She made a misstep. Her husband's on a bender. He calls for her to come in. He wants to show her off like his trophy wife. She refuses to come, and then she gets kicked out. The next step was to have Esther win the beauty contest. She gets picked up as queen. Haman launches his plot, and it seems to be working perfectly, but now the plot's become known to Queen Esther. Can she stop it? Right? This is the story of this book. Now Mordecai also gave the eunuch, right, a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show it to Esther and explain to her the command her to go to the king and beg his favor and plead on her behalf for her people, right? So Mordecai understands, I got a Jewish woman that's queen, can't she stop this, right? And Hatshepsut went and told Esther, and Mordecai said, and Esther spoke to Hatshepsut and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes in the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law, to be put to death, except the one whom the king holds out the golden scepter so that he may live. But as for me, I have not been called to come to the king in 30 days. Okay? King's bedding all his other concubines or whatever. He's not taking Esther to bed right now. She hasn't seen him in a month. She's going, I can't force myself in. And Mordecai doesn't just reply on word of mouth. He brought the receipts, right? He gives her a copy of the thing, the written decree. Esther is willing to speak to the king on behalf of her people, but in this Persian culture, she doesn't even have the right to go in and ask. She may be queen, but she has no power, no nothing. So everything seems lost unless God intervenes, right? We're looking at just, this almost certainly looks like the end of the Jews, at least in the Persian province. And that those provinces are going to include Judea and Jerusalem. It's the end of the Jews in the near Middle East. Verses 12-14. And they told Mordecai and Esther, he said, Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do you think yourself that in the king's palace that you will escape any more than any other Jews? For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance and rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. What a powerful thing. He's telling her, hey, you're a Jew. It says kill all Jews. Do you think you're going to escape? Not only you, but your entire family's going to die. Right? Don't think just because you're in a position of queen you're going to escape. You're all going to die if he carries out this order. Now Esther's just telling Mordecai in her reply that she can't approach the king without being called or she's going to be killed. And Mordecai says, you're dying anyway, lady, right? So plan A, Esther goes into the king and Esther dies. Plan E, Esther doesn't go in the king, Esther dies, right? This is a lose-lose situation. She doesn't seem to have an option. What's she going to do? No matter what she does, death is her future. 15 to 17. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, and night or day. And my young women and I will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." Mordecai then went away and did everything Esther ordered him to do. So she's fasting and praying, but she gets all the other Jews to fast and pray with her in that town. And they're going. And now, so Esther she chooses plan C. Plan C is, we're going to God for help. If I go to the king directly, I die. If I don't go to the king directly, I die. Plan C, I'm going to ask God to do something that no human can do. I'm going to pray to God. I'm going to seek his deliverance. I'm going to pull out my big weapon, prayer. The most powerful tool in your toolbox, prayer. And they're emphasizing prayer with fasting. I mean, this is dedicated prayer. This is not, I talked to God for 5 minutes this morning. This is 3 days of denying yourself food and drink so that you can stay focused on God. And it's often in times of extreme desperation that we get our will so aligned with God's will that we decide to be faithful even if God chooses not to save us. Job got to that point. Even if you kill me, if God kills me, I won't deny him. Right? There was an old song called Even If that I used to like. And it was, even if God doesn't come through. God could save me, but even if he doesn't, I'll be faithful. This is where Esther is. She says, I'm going to go to God first. I'm going to seek him. And then after 3 days of asking God for guidance and where I'm at and do this, I'm going to do God's will no matter what. And if I die, I die. And that's where we're supposed to get to in our own minds. That we will obey no matter what is going to happen to us in the future. And that's where Esther gets to. And we're going to see in Wednesday, this is going to start, what's going to happen based on these prayers. Right? So at this point in my studies, it is my practice that what I do is I put on a song. I'm gonna play one of Michael Beatty's songs, California, and then I'm gonna try to read the chats. I'll see if there's anything that I need to address, any comments. I'll say hi to people or whatever, and then I'm gonna come back and talk to you for a while, and then we'll get out of here whenever it ends. I may end up earlier than an hour. These are short chapters, but I'll see you in a few minutes after these.
worship you alone. You will come to take me home.
You are all I ever need. Jesus, you have set me free. I will worship you alone. You will come to take me home. You are all I ever
You are all I need.
Jesus, you have set
You
me
set me free.
I will worship you
I will worship you.
You will come to take me home.
I've fallen on my knees. I will bless the Lord. Do, 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 do. Oh, oh, oh.
Okay, so we back. So yeah, the point of this book, and point of where we're at in this book, is to trust God when things don't go your way. When you're out of work and you're going to job interview after job interview and you're not getting them. When you have a friend or relative who is sick or dying and you pray with all fervency that God will heal them, and it doesn't happen and they die. To stay faithful to God in that position, that even if you kill me, Lord, I'll believe. Because that's the mind of God. What did Jesus do? Right in the garden before he dies. He's never known anything. The man Jesus has never known anything other than perfect fellowship with the Father his entire life. He is the incarnation of the second person of the Trinity who has had perfect fellowship with the Father for all eternity. Now, according to God's plan, Jesus is going to take a cup upon himself, not a literal cup, but he's going to drink the cup that is going to contain all the sins of every person in the entire world. He's going to become so inundated with sin that it's going to say he became sin. Okay? Now, God didn't become sin in the man Jesus, but it's like how saturated with sin do you have to be that it says he that knew no sin became sin for us. I think the beatings, I mean, Roman crucifixion and beating is nothing to sneer at. It's one of the most horrible ways to die. But I think when compared to that separation from the Father that Jesus was going to experience, that the actual beating and all that stuff pales in comparison. And he says he's sweating blood in the garden, begging the Father, if there's any other way, let's do that plan. Because I know this plan. This plan sucks, okay? Let's do the other plan. If there's a plan B, let's do plan B. But nevertheless, may not your will, but my will be done. Amazing stuff, right? You can, I mean, that's the faith, and that's where God wants our faith. Nevertheless, even if, like I said, that song, even if you don't save me, even if you don't do this, right? I told you the story before that, we tried to be good, faithful stewards of what God gave us, and I've been blessed most of my life. And when we were losing everything from my perspective, I think we never were poor on a global perspective, but we definitely were taking a serious hit from where I had been. I couldn't understand why God was letting it happen. And I said, if you need me to learn something, just tell me what it is, and I'll step up and I beg God not to do this. And then he took me through a valley and really helped me refocus. And I said, okay, I think I've learned a lesson. Can we come back out of this? Can you restore some of the fortunes? I see you restored a fortune to Job. Can you restore some of that? And you hope that's going to happen. And I prayed for that to happen. It's not my top prayer. My prayer is for health and happiness and my family. And God's done plenty of miracles and all those things. But I wouldn't mind having that restored. I've tried to make wise decisions to help God facilitate that. Still hasn't happened. If it never happens, I trust God. If he further destroys our finances, I trust God. I mean, thank God for my son-in-law, or I couldn't have lived in Hawaii, right? He made this possible. It wasn't me. It wasn't some brilliance of Bill Donahue that made this happen. Son-in-law's good decisions made this happen. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the blessings I got. But sometimes we pray honestly for stuff, and it never comes. And it's not because we don't have enough faith. It's not because there's some secret sin in our life. It's because God works his will for our good. And sometimes what's for our good is not what we want. We want something else, right? We want an easy life. We want money, health, wealth, and happiness, right? We want those things. We go to God all the time. I want. Me. God says, come to me and seek me first. Seek God first, and I'll give you everything you want. What's he promise you? I'm going to give you God. If God's what you want, seek that first, and I'll give you all of that. Maybe then he might also give you some of the other stuff. But you got to change your focus. What are you asking God for? And that's what she's here. And Esther and them, they want to be saved. They don't want to die. But she gets in her prayer that she going, hey, if I think that I'm praying to God that we don't die and I end up dead, so be it. What a great little story that you got going on here. So I didn't see any real questions in the chat, but I do see a lot of people moving around. And that Miss 320 made it over to Foxhole. Yeah, welcome. Or Miss Olson, not Miss 320. Miss 320 is over in D-Live. Miss Olson, congratulations. I think you've liked the Comfy Bunker over there. There's some good people. Neil broadcast over there. There's some other good people that are really teaching. When, like I said, you'll hear me mention singing pretty often. I'm often in her chat. She's usually like my radio station. She does it. She also plays movies. I'm not really into The Chosen and stuff, but there's other people there I think you'll like over on the Foxhole. And it's kind of a good place. It's a mixed bag. A lot of people in there doing different kind of stuff. A lot of news people. But congratulations for making it over there, because you need more than one place. Because like I said, I had Cloud Hub followers that Cloud Hub's gone. I've had D-Live that's dropped, wouldn't let me on for more than a week. Facebook is where I started. I have a lifetime ban from Zuckerberg. So, you got to have more than one place to listen if you want to listen. And so with that, I just want to do what I used to do for my introduction. I said a little of this at the beginning. I broadcast on most channels as Donahue Papa. All right? Rumble, Twitter, or X, D-Live, no longer Cloud Hub. Okay? On Pilled or Foxhole, I'm Bill Donahue. And on YouTube, Discerning Truth 534. Now, I do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And what do you call it? Monday and Wednesday, I'm in a book of the Bible. I'll go through Esther. Friday, I'm gonna look at, is God a moral monster? right? Is the God of the Old Testament different than the God of the New Testament? You think these eyes like to answer that? These eyes say, oh, Ghost Pepper, great question. Did some of the people, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to my thing. Did some of the people that God told the Jews to exterminate and they failed to do, are they part of the bloodlines of some of the people that we're still fighting today? And the answer to that is I think that's true. I think that is still the case. But a lot of the people, like in the Middle East that we're fighting from, right? God promised Abraham a child through Sarah. He helped her out and decided, Sarah and Abraham decided they'd help out God by letting Abraham have sex with Hagar. And then they got Ishmael, father of the Arab tribes. But most of the people in that Middle East that we think of as Arabs aren't Arabs. After Sarah dies, Abraham marries another wife named Keturah, which concubine wife kind of not as clear. He has 9 more sons through Keturah. Those sons are the fathers of the bloodlines. Like when we're bombing in Iran and Syria and Iraq and stuff, these are not Ishmaelites. These are Keturah's kids. And those are doing stuff that God told him not to do. He told them, have your child with Sarah. That's the child of promise. And they went on. So that's them. But I also think that there's a likelihood that some of these corrupted bloodlines have existed and remained existed, from the Canaanite tribes from that time. But it's a good question. So, like I said, Tuesdays I'm normally on with Neo. Neo's traveling. She's not a permanent resident in Canada yet, so she has to return to the United States every so often, and she's doing that. And so we're not going to have a Donna Hughes Day Tuesday on next Tuesday. And then if I miss your question or you think of it after, just email me, bill@discerningtruths, plural, bill@discerningtruths.com. Email me, and we're good to go. And then after, I do a lot in text on my stream because I want a PDF after. And I try to proofread them before I go online, but for whatever reason, I miss a lot of the typing errors until I'm live. So I will correct the slides you've seen, make a PDF out of it, and I'm going to drop it on Discerning Truth groups on Telegram. Download it. You'll have these notes for your own study. I also write on Substack. I don't always write on theology on Substack. Like I said, other than a little bit that I did on the beast economy like last Friday, I never talk about like crypto on my streams, but I write about crypto sometimes on Substack, right? So there's theology is my primary focus there, but there's other reasons, And like I said, I used to have all my replays on CloudHub. CloudHub did an upgrade, wiped out all my content, and left me with 2 followers. I just turned them off. We're done. So now everything's on Rumble and DLive. I know Foxhole keeps your replays. There's no way to organize them. They're organized in Rumble and YouTube. Rumble wants you to broadcast on a channel underneath your account, but they allow you to make more channels. I have on the slide 13, but I think I added a 14th channel on Rumble. And there's like Old Testament books, which this will be, and then Freaky Fridays, like last week was, right? And then you're going to have New Testament books. You have all kinds of those. Now on YouTube, there's more. I found playlists on YouTube first, and I made way more than 14. There's 30 something. So each book, like Esther, has its own playlist on YouTube. Romans has its own playlist. All these different stuff. It's not like Old Testament books and New Testament books. So that's a little better design. And the pain on Rumble is if you like Old Testament books like today's study, you got to go back out the Donahue Papa, go into New Testament books, and like New Testament books, back out the Donahue Papa into Freaky Friday, and like a pain in the butt. But they don't give you credit for liking Donahue Papa. It means you like all my channels underneath it. Little pain. I have a website I don't do anything with, and there. And I always promote my good friend Michael Beatty in California. He does all the music that I play. Michael teaches the Bible 6 days a week. Takes Saturday off. On Sunday, his wife Linda joins him. And Michael and I did some Prophet Club programs a couple years ago, and we were going to continue them. It's just Michael and I, with me in Hawaii and him in California, and he's so busy with some political stuff, we just haven't been able to pull it off. I leave the Prophet Club up there as kind of a statement of faith that we're going to get back to that, but just haven't been able to do it, no matter how much I try to set deadlines for myself and do it. So with that, I'm going to get out of here for today, and we will, God willing, be back here on Wednesday, and I will see you then. Okay. Thank you. Oh, wrong song. Hang on. I'm not pushing buttons correctly. Here we go.